Hey guys, Flamingo here, your coach of the Cooper and Crabhammers. Today we're going through a recap of my second place finish in the Sandbox Draft League. So a little bit of a different video compared to normal battles and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into too much depth on the actual draft because I've got a video up on that. So we'll still just have a quick run through of the team. So the team was I might just fix this up a little bit, hey? How's that sound? Sounds good to me. There we go. So my team was my tier 0 in Wallaby, and my tier 1 in Galarian Farfetch'd. I had tier 2s in the Salandit, the Cutie Fly, and the Lilith. My tier 3s were Squirtle and Esper, and my tier 4s were Eevee, Snorunt, Galarian Meowth, and the Golem. So I'm going to go through each of my weeks, then give sort of a recap on each Pokemon, some strats that didn't get used, that sort of thing, and then sort of evaluate the league. Snorunt originally was at Kavana, which Burst dropped Goomy, so I picked up Goomy, and then I swapped Goomy for Snorunt with Masto. But it didn't really matter because it never actually came. So, week 1, I was up against my man Ryan, aka Piano Guy. He had a weather team, specifically Sun, with some good support options like Mianfu, and some hard-hitting offensive options like Cubone. So he came at me with his Sun mode, not his Oddish, but his Vulpix and his Helioptile. So, I identified early on that sort of Scarf Salandit was good into all the weather modes, just because the two main weather modes in Little Cup were the Hail and the Sun, and so I could hit the supporting mons, the abusers really hard with Scarf Salandit. Since it outsped things like Oddish, Sandshrew, Alola, that sort of thing, so it was super useful here. It's got Incinerate here as its move is actually Heat Wave. So I did win game 2 of the Double Protect on my Vullaby. I only got in that position because I didn't have Earth Power on Lilith. I didn't think it was worth it to hit the Helioptile. But fuck was I wrong. Rock Slide was completely useless. So I didn't make that mistake again. Generally, like Earth Power, Giga Drain, Ancient Power, Sludge Bomb with the 4 attacks, I'd rotate through the league. Vullaby was just super goated. It just sat there. It knocked off items. It recovered. It did big damage. So super happy with how my first week went. So that was a 2-0 win for me. Week 2, I was against my man Masto. Got another 2-0 win. I did get a freeze on his Togepi that lasted like 8 turns or something ridiculous. But like Masto had a real bulky team, had a really strong Trick Room mode, didn't have much on the faster end of things, but had a good Tailwind center to kind of make up for it. So game 1 I led Esper Squirtle with Vullaby and Farfetch'd in the back. And then game 2 I led Squirtle and Cutie Fly, and I got a boost up the Cutie Fly and got some damage off with that. From this game, boosting stats didn't really seem to be that effective. Like with the low general bulk, outside of like the lone Eviolite mon, you don't really need to get many boosts up. And so if you're boosting, it means you're not doing damage. So I kind of found this week that it was good to get a Quiver Dance off with Cutie Fly, but like I was probably better off just going for damage. Vullaby was also super good. This was the only 2 KOs on Vullaby in the regular season, but it had some pretty big hacks against it. And Farfetch'd also did work. It cleaned up late game. Just the stab, expert belt, close combats was just super nutty. Week 3 was up against Emboss. We were the only 2 undefeated teams left, and I got a 2-0 win here. Squirtle just did big work game 1. I was running like Scarf with Water Spout, and it just did so much damage. Game 2, though, I led the same league, which was Esper and Squirtle, so my shtick was sort of a fake out with Esper and get a water spout off, and then turn 2 he had to target down the Squirtle, so I did another water spout. I set Trick Room, and then I'd bring Laleep in and Farfetch'd late game. But it wasn't like game 2. I thought, oh, he's got to have something to counter this. So I led it again. I switched out Squirtle, but it turns out his Scarfmon was fucking I can't even remember what it's called, but it was base 30 speed. So my Squirtle outsped it. So I could have just hit water spout again. Instead, I switched it out, but it let me bring it in again late game. I got 2 surfs up on Laleep, and it let me go from being down 1-4 to winning 1-0 with Laleep soloing his team. So yeah, week 4 up against the champion, Ollie. So I identified that I got another 2-0 win here. Identified that he didn't have a Dragon Resist. So Gumi looked really good here. I didn't actually end up bringing Gumi. I think I went with Esper Squirtle again. I think I did the exact same thing, except I didn't worry about setting up Trick Room. I just did fake out, water spout, and then just started attacking and cleaning from there. But he had a Trapinch with double priority moving, quick attack, and first impression. So that just, my Squirtle did not get to do as much this time as it did last time. But I ran something different. I went AV on Vullaby this time, so still let me go bulky, but a little bit more offensive with like Air Slash, Knockoff, Snarl, and Foul Play. Foul Play seemed really good into his team as well. So week 5, handed my first loss. This was against Embers. I think I played really well game 1. Game 2, I kind of switched it up and went with my Scarf Salander again, because Embers has had the Hail mode, and I could outspeed it with the Salander. So I went with Salander Eevee and got some big round damage off, but just couldn't clutch it out in game. And then game 3, I played really shit turn 1, and Burst played really well and just absolutely fucked my anus. And so that was my first loss in the season. This was when I started questioning bringing AB and Leap all the time. So week 6, back to our winning streak. Got a 2-0 win onto Kinky Nesquik. This was probably the week I realised if I have a damage boosting ability, I need to bring it. I had Unnerved Meowth Galar here. This is probably the one time that boosting did work, was Curse, Gyro Ball, Galar Meowth. But if I had Tough Claws, some 2-hit KOs would have been OKOs, and some 3-hit KOs would have been 2-hit KOs. So this was the week I realised that it's not worth running non-damage boosting abilities if your Pokemon has them. But yeah, everything did quite well again, like just leading to a Vullaby endgame. That seems to be what I do most of the time this season. Week 7, up against my man Coco for days. Rocked the Scarf Cutie-Fly because it just felt really good into his team. I was faster than all his Pokemon, and it did like a substantial amount of super effective damage. So just slapped the specs on it and just had Dazzling Gleam. Just click Dazzling Gleam. That's all I needed to click. And if anything, they had a couple things weak to it, but also had not much to resist it. So it just chomped. It just did so good. Again, played to a Vullaby endgame. And yeah, not much to say about that one. He had Life Orb Snom, and that did a surprising large amount of damage to my Vullaby. But yeah, still, I got the OHKO on it with dual wing beat, so it didn't quite matter. Week 8, that was a 2-0 win as well. Week 8 up against Mean Base God. This was when I realised how good Meteor Beam was, and it just helped my Laleep do so much damage. So this is the first time, like I brought Meteor Beam, Power Herb, Laleep to a battle, but it never actually hit the field. Also, I did not learn my lesson from the Meowth, and I decided to run No Guard Golett. If I had have run Iron Fist Golett and changed Dynamic Punch to Drain Punch or something like that, then I would have been in a much better spot, because Fire Punch would have just straight up OHKO'd his Ferroseed. And this is also the game I discovered that Nightshade and Seismic Toss is absolutely fucking broken in this format. Just because of the lower general HP, you're able to get so much extra. It does just so much extra damage in this sort of format. Running the mixed Vullaby was good. Heatwave was sort of clutch into not letting the Ferroseed just be able to set up on me and do stupid things. Week 9, last game of the regular season, up against my man Bambit, and he also has a Hail team. He had what was he? He had Aurorus. Aurorus, is it? Amora, and Sand Shrew Alola as his Hail Sweeper. So I brought Scarf Slander again because it outsped it all. And Vullaby again just was able to take stupid big hits. He had brought physical Poipole for the first time all season, and I'm really glad he did. But it just meant that Vullaby could sit there and be stupid. This was a week I brought Snowrunt, and it didn't actually hit the field. So at the end of that, I finished this regular season at 8-1 and had the best record, not just in the Twin League division, but in both the divisions. I had the best record. Wakeman also had an 8-1 season, but he had one win. That was a 2-1 win. So anyway, in the semi-finals, we up against our week 2 opponent, which was Masto. And so I brought Iron Defense Vullaby this week. I just thought his best ways to hit it was physical attackers, and I thought I could just get an Iron Defense up and sit there and just chip things away and roost. Turns out he brought Dragon Dance Scraggy. So that kind of chucked a spanner in my works. And so I ended up just stalling him like a degenerate piece of shit I am. What else came? He got a double Intimidate on my Squirtle, which means Squirtle was there next to Choice Scarf Farfetch'd, and my Aqua Jet just didn't quite pick up the Togepi, which means I couldn't close combat into the Scraggy. But I kind of had to go for it. That was sort of my best play. I guess I probably could have Icy Wind. Icy Wind could have also been a good play, and then just done a double, just done an Icy Wind again the next turn. Yeah, that probably could have worked. Anyway, but we ended up stalling it out and winning that. That was the only game 1 I won, just because I got some speed drops on that Scraggy before the Vullaby came in. Game 2 just ended up being a stall fest and going to timer. And I had Roost, and he only had Drain Punch, and we were both +6, and he was still doing no damage. He needed the crit to clutch the win out. Next was the grand final, which unfortunately I lost 1-2. Congratulations to Ollie, good job on winning. I felt I prepped well. Everything felt good in prep, and we kind of practiced against everything that he brought. I felt Eevee was super the right call. It was so good, this matchup. Like, every time it hit the field, it just did so much damage, except for that game 3. He got that burn off, which meant I should have double edged instead of Facade. That would have put me in a better position going into the next turn. But anyway, you kind of get that. I brought Scarf Vullaby, but looking at his team at the end, should have just stuck with what was consistent. I think Bulky Vullaby still does super good into that composition. There was a few plays where, hacks wise, I think we both got haxed equally. Like, he missed a play rough, I got full parry to turn. There was a few other bits and pieces. Like, I got burnt off a attack into Ponyta. I think there might have been a crit somewhere. Yeah, there was a crit on Natu in a game. So yeah, there were some plays that just didn't go my way. wouldn't say it was 50-50 calls, but it was like I had to play against ally switch, so I had to just like double into a slot. It would have been good, but yeah, I kind of had to play around that ally switch, and that kind of fucked me over a bit, just on a couple turns, and then in the end game, like, kind of felt like I had to split my attacks, but like a double would have also put me in a good position, but could have also put me in a shit position. So yeah, anyway, I was on the back foot. He'd positioned himself much better than me, and it paid off for him. Well, none of my single-use items procced other than the focus sash on the Solandit. Like, Mental Herb I brought just because he's used Encore and Taunt on his Purloin and Taunt on his Litten before, so I thought, it seems like a pretty important item to have. And then I had Whack and Berry on the Squirtle, because I really thought at least Thunderbolt or Wild Charge was coming on his Ponyta slash Natu. That didn't end up coming, so like having two useless items kind of is fucking shit. And I also originally had like Corrosion Toxic on Salandit over Thunderwave, and I think that would have been better for me as well. I think just being able to one, Toxic my own Eevee, and two, also just get that chip up so Eevee's quick attack could pick stuff up late games. I think that definitely would have been a better option for me. Life Dew was super good on Squirtle. I'm so glad I brought it. Let me safely switch in things and get my health back if it was going to take damage, but also just let me sort of like have a passive turn where I get to pretty much fully recover my Pokemon, especially if there was things out that couldn't hit Squirtle super effectively. I could protect the partner Pokemon, be that, well really it was only Eevee, and get some health back. There was one turn there, I didn't know his Marchop with Eevee like in game 2. If I had have Scalded into his Marchop, I could have double-edged Scald next turn, and then I could have just sort of Life Dew Icy Wind stalled out his Natu. But yeah, you fucking get that. Ollie's goated, totally deserves a win. He's been playing phenomenally lately, so congrats to my man Ollie. Forever second place. You. Alright, so let's get on to the Pokemon. My tier 0, Volibee. Amazing bulk in 70, 75, 65. Actually wasn't the bulkiest Pokemon on my team. We'll get to that guy later. And actually didn't have the highest base stat total on my team. I only had 377, but like 377. It was my main Eviolite user. And we'll get to why the other bulky Pokemon didn't have Eviolite as often. It came pretty much every week. There was one week it didn't come during regular season and I lost that. But still, I'd kind of planned on not bringing it if I was playing Burst in the final anyway. Support move pool is amazing. Things like Snarl and Rock Tomb and Knockoff and Tailwind and Taunt. And then it also had enough moves that it could do damage. Brave Bird, Foul Play, Knockoff again. So yeah, I felt it was tiered appropriately for what we were aiming for in Season 1. And I give this guy 10 out of 10. 100% best Pokemon on my team. Second best Pokemon on my team. We'll get to the best soon. Next, we have Galarian Farfetch'd. He is my tier 1 Pokemon. I only got one because I opted to go for a tier 0. Amazing offenses for the format in base 95. Had surprisingly good bulk with 52, 55, 62 respectively. And this was my highest base stat total Pokemon with 377, which kind of makes sense why it got to have such a good offensive stat, but also surprisingly bulky, but while still being surprisingly bulky. I could go hard offensive or like an offensive support. So hard offense would be like close combat, protect, Brave Bird, knock off, or something like that. Offensive support, I might go like Feint, knock off, close combat, or Brick Break, something. Also had moves like Helping Hand, which I never actually brought, but I thought could be like quite handy. I felt this was tiered inappropriately. This should definitely be a tier 1, and I also give this a 10 out of 10. Next, we're going into my first tier 2 Pokemon. This was actually the bulkiest Pokemon on my team, and that was the Leap. Let me move my face, and I've got the numbers. Oh, you bastard. There we go. So it's got slightly less HP with 66, but it's got more defense in 77 and way more special defense in 87. So it was my main AV user purely because it had Giga Drain. Like if Vullaby had something like Oblivion Wing, I probably would have run Assault Vest more, just because I quite like being able to recover an Assault Vest user. So things like Draining Kiss, Giga Drain, Drain Punch, Oblivion Wing for the one Pokemon that gets it, that sort of thing, I really like on an Assault Vest Pokemon. Its move pool was kind of limited though, like it had Giga Drain or Energy Ball. I generally ran Giga Drain because it was AB. Meteor Beam, which you couldn't run on Assault Vest, or I guess you kind of could, an Ancient Power, Earth Power, Sludge Bomb, and Round. That was sort of its special move pool, which was kind of limited, but it was also kind of enough. Didn't have much on the support end of things. Like I wanted to run Wrap 1 week just because I really like the idea of being able to chip things over time. I felt this was tiered inappropriately. This should be at the very least a tier. It shouldn't be a tier 0. It should be a tier 1. And I give this guy 10 out of 10. Its ability, you can get this with a good Surf user. I had an okay Surf user or a Life Dew user because while Life Dew recovers most Pokemon's health in the Storm Drain Pokemon, it actually gives you a special attack boost. So yeah, you could get a good Life Dew or Surf Pokemon, then yeah, you're in pretty good hands with Lily. Next we have the Salandit. It was my second fastest Pokemon with base 77 speed. It kind of hogs the Focus Sash, but there was occasions where Choice Scarf worked well as well. It wasn't quite fast enough to always want to run something like Choice Specs or a Life Orb, and it didn't have the bulk to run those things either, purely because there was a lot of base 80 to 95 Pokemon out there, and generally if those are out there, and then there was also the Weather Sweepers. So like it became hard to not use Focus Sash, but it has an amazing support move pool, things like Fake Out, Helping Hand, Taunt, Thunder Wave, Corrosion, Toxic, and it also does really good damage. It's got an impressive special attack stat for the format, and I felt this was tiered appropriately. I give this guy a 9 out of 10. Very good support Pokemon, and I would definitely like to use something like Salazzle in the future. Wish I could use Beat Up on it, like some in Justified Pokemon. I think it's just Growlithe, and you got 2 fire types together, so yeah, that's a bit dodge. Anyway, going on to my last tier 2, which was actually my fastest Pokemon with base 84 speed, and that is Cutiefly. It also wants a Sash for similar reasons, but you could get away with running Specs and that sort of thing, purely because it was just faster. So a lot of you did outspeed a lot of the faster Pokemon on other teams. I often struggled to want to bring this over other things just because like it was frail, and I felt like bulk was pretty good in this format, but did have access to things like screens, which I never used, and speed swap, which would have been really cool. And yeah, I felt this guy was tiered appropriately. I wouldn't drop it a tier, but I'll give this guy 6 out of 10 for my particular comp. I think maybe like a more hyper offensive comp, this could actually be alright. Or even like a more Trick Room orientated comp, this would also be really good. But mine was just kind of like a bulky all-rounder sort of team, so it kind of didn't really fit any specific role. It would just be if the opponent has a particular weakness to Fairy, I'd slap a Specs or something on this and just watch it do damage. Esper was my first tier 3, and it is absolutely amazing. I've said this is 9 out of 10, but really this is 10 out of 10. It has amazing stats all around, 62, I think it's 48, 54, 63, 60, 68, which is fantastic for this format. And its support move pool is amazing. Actually, its offensive move pool is also really good. So Psychic, Psy-Shock, so you get to hit on both sides of the spectrum off your special attack. Has Thunderbolt, has Dark Pulse, has Energy Ball. So, like, I brought all those moves at some point or another. Generally, Psychic, +1, plus Trick Room, plus Fake Out, or something like that. Plus, like, support move, Fake Out, Helping Hand, Trick Room, Trick, Thunder Wave. So, it was super good. This was a glue to my team. Like, I kind of wanted to bring this guy every week, especially forming the sort of dark fighting Psychic core of my team. I felt this was super solid. I've got 9 out of 10 there. 9 out of 10 there. Let's make it a 10 out of 10. This thing was really good, and I felt it was tiered inappropriately. It was tier 3. I feel it should probably be tier 2. Next we have our Squirtle. Its stats all around were kind of middling. Like, it had pretty good bulk with 60, like 62, 60 in defense and special defense, but it only had 40 HP. Its offensive stats were 40. Its speed was 40. So everything was just kind of mid. But it kind of makes up for it with its move pool. Like, has Fake Out, Helping Hand, Icy Wind. On the physical side, you've got like Flip Turn, Liquidation, Ice Punch, Brick Break. On the special side, you got Dragon Pulse, Scald, Water Spout, which was absolutely amazing. Ice Beam, Scald, like just great moves. I felt it was tiered appropriately. I'll probably give this guy 8 out of 10, and it is where it belongs. Like tier 3, it's like a solid tier 3. Okay, now we're getting into the spicy stuff. We're getting into our tier 4s. First one is Eevee. This is probably my most underutilized Pokemon throughout the season. I definitely should have used this guy more. After seeing the amount of damage that this thing just did to Ollie's Pokemon is just absolutely unreal. Its ability makes up for its lackluster offensive stats, and it just did stupid damage. Like, Double Edge was OHKOing shit that it just really has no right OHKOing. And I felt it was tiered inappropriately. This thing needs to be tier 3. 11 out of 10. Superb Pokemon. I am Team Eevee all the way. I'm definitely going to be drafting this motherfucker in the future. Next one, Meowth. This guy was my lowest base stat total of all my Pokemon at 290. So that was another thing I tried to do in my draft, was try and get everything over that 300 mark. But I felt I was okay dipping down to like that below 300 for Meowth for a few reasons. One, it has a steel typing, and in tier 4 that's phenomenal. It has Fake Out, which in this format is absolutely nutty. It has an ability to make up for its middling stats with Tough Claw, so any attack that makes contact gets a 30% boost or some shit like that. It has a really good diverse move pool, and like access to things like Iron Head that uses its main stab, Play Rough. Doesn't get any fighting moves, gets like dark coverage, grass coverage, like just stupid stuff. So I thought, yeah, this was like well worth to dip below that 300 and get something like this. I struggled to bring it as often as I'd like, because often a lot of the top tier Pokemon on a team were fighting in fire. And we've got Cubthrough, we've got Scraggy, we've got Growlithe, we've got Litten, we've got Ponyta. So there was lots of Pokemon that this thing did not want to fight, that were my opponent's top tiers. There were, like, it looked good into the Hail teams I played. It looked good into Ryan outside of, like, he had 2 tier 1s or 2 tier 2s or something like that were fighting fire, but it still felt good into his team. So yeah, I wish I could have brought a ball, but my opponent's draft system let that happen. Hopefully in the future, pay a bit more attention to my opponent's draft, and I can pick this up when the steel typing's looking better. Next one is, and this was tiered inappropriately, as with Meowth. Meowth's tier 3 should be tier 2. This should be a tier 3 at the very least. Next we have Golett. Like, look at this dude flex. Big buff boy. Good HP stat with average defenses. I think this guy's a really good Eviolite user if you don't have Vullaby, or if you don't have Porygon, or if you don't have Mudbrain. Like, this guy's a good Eviolite user. And its offensive move pool is absolutely stupid. The fact it has an ability to enhance its punching attack really helps. So things like Shadow Punch, the Elemental Punches, Drain Punch are all really good on this guy. Gets that ground coverage, gets that rock coverage, gets that normal coverage. I'm sure it gets more shit on top of that I can't think of right now. This guy was really good. Plus it has Nightshade, which I think is a stupid good move in this format. So if you can get a Pokemon with Nightshade or Seismic Toss, I think you're in a pretty good position in a Little Cup draft league. It was tiered inappropriately. I think it should be tier 3. And I'll give this guy 8 out of 10. Last mon is Snow Run. It actually didn't hit the field, but I did bring it once, and has two amazing abilities in, Moody and Inner Focus. I would have liked to have used it more, but, whatever. It's a tier 4. Can't say it was tiered appropriately, but I can't give it a rating. Got a couple unused strats here, which I would have liked to have used. I had another one in here actually. What's it called? Speed Swap. So I wish I had been able to use an Ice Shard Weakness Policy proc into Weak Armor Vullaby. Give it +2 to its attack, special attack, and its speed. I think could be absolutely nutty. Wish I could have been able to run dual screens on the Cutie Fly, but I think my team had enough bulk that it didn't quite need it. I never run Tailwind on Vullaby. I had it in the initial draft for my Grand Finals team, ended up opting for U-Turn. Should have opted for Rock Tomb, I reckon, but I think it just didn't end up doing much in Mox. So yeah, Tailwind would have been good to bring at some point, and I think Speed Swap could have been useful to use at some point, like speed swapping onto Laleep or Farfetch'd or even Eevee. Some of those mods that just do big damage for me could have been really cool. So, reflection on the team. I think the bulk of my team was unrivaled in the division. Just having things like Vullaby and Laleep as a starting point, and then like other fairly bulky mod to back it up, like Farfetch'd and Goldet. I think I had the bulkiest team for sure, and I had enough good initial offense that people couldn't just like sit in front of me and do nothing. The fact that I had like Stab Foul Play, I had Farfetch'd, I had Eevee and stuff like that, just meant I could do, and even Slanted, I could do big damage from the get-go. So you couldn't just be passive in front of me. I had good speed distribution. I had 23 to 84. I think that the 70 is really the cutoff. It's like the equivalent of like 100 in a standard draft league. I think 23 might even still be too fast. I think you need something closer to that 20 mark. That would be around the 30 mark for a standard sort of draft league. Had a lot of Sash, Scarf, and Eviolite pressure. I think these are probably the three most important items, especially the Sash and the Eviolite. I had a couple ones that really wanted to use Sash and a couple ones that really wanted to use Eviolite. If I brought them both, at least with Eviolite, I have Assault Vest to kind of make up for that. But yeah, I had sometimes had a tough time like picking an item that I wanted. I wanted to try different stuff throughout the season, but kind of ended up just leaning on consistency. Things like Eviolite on the Vullaby, Trick Room, that sort of thing. Tried to do something different in the grand final, but I think if I had to go on consistency, I probably would have had a better chance. I was often bailed out of bad play by good team buildings and also having just like strong Pokemon, especially that Vullaby, which kind of sums me up in general. Like I often get bailed out by my team building. So if anyone wants to team build, hit me up. If you want me to play, yeah, fucking joking. And the team just felt really nice to pilot. Like the Pokemon I drafted did their fucking job and did really well. So I'm really happy with my draft. I think my play kind of let them down in the grand final, but I also had a really tough opponent. So what can you do? Reflection on the format itself. You weren't punished for taking a tier 0. You saw my 4 tier 4s. I even went top heavy and got a lot more tier 2s than a lot of other coaches that got tier 0s got. And my tier 4s were brilliant. Like Eevee, Meowth, Goldet were all really good. Snowrun, we don't talk about him. But some of the tier 1s and tier 2s were placed too low. I'm thinking maybe there should be a cutoff between tier 1 and tier 0 for base stat total. I know other places like DPEC uses base 370, so I think that could be probably a good one. Things like Walmart and Lickitung then move up a bracket. Base 70, I think I said this before, seems to be the equivalent of like the standard draft base 100s. Anything over base 100 is considered fast. In this little cup, I think anything over base 70 is considered fast. Boosting doesn't seem like a great strategy to bring. I think you're better off just attacking, just because the bulk relative to the power is much lower in this format. So I think if you can get damage off straight away, it's going to be a bit more effective than boosting yourself over turns. I guess the best way would be not so much like a follow me Dragon Dance, it would be punishing a passive play. That would probably be the one time you want a boosting move. Knockoff is absolutely goated. So is Nightshade. So is Seismic Toss. Knockoff, just being able to get rid of an Eviolite is just super useful. So if you can get a knockoff mon or more, then you're in a pretty good position. Bulk was surprisingly good in this format. Even in the grand final, like Ollie had a really bulky team relative to what he normally brought, and it really paid off for him. So yeah, I think bulk is surprisingly good. Next we have recommendations for the future. Please have a season in Scarlet and Violet. I know we are because I'm a mod. But I'd also like to see all the coaches come back and any new coaches come along and join up. I would also like to see us bring singles in the mix. There was talk of it in Season 1. We didn't have enough takers, but hopefully we can get some singles in. Not sure if we'll do like the level 5 Smoggin rules, or if we go the like level 50 sort of standard BGC, or maybe we do sort of both. I'm not sure. Some of those tier 4s need to be moved up, especially if they have a damage boosting ability, especially in the non-max, like things like Sheer Force and Tough Claws kind of disappear once you max them on. But in the non-max, adaptability and all that sort of stuff, it's just stupid good. I'd like to continue with 2 BGC divisions. I'd like to see one with bans, things like maybe anything with that base stat total 370 or higher gets banned, so things like Bullaby, Porygon, Scarlet and Violet, if pursuing Quillfish, that sort of thing gets. We also know of some other Pokemon that I won't mention because people don't want spoilers, but maybe some other Pokemon that get evolutions that previously didn't. They might also need to be banned. But I'd also like to see a division without bans and just watch it just be an absolute shit show with like stupid strong little ones going up against each other. Things like Sneasel and Skyther. That could be really cool. So some thank yous. I'd like to thank Raspberry, aka Daddy Sandbox. He is the owner and the starter of the league. I'd like to thank him for inviting me to be a moderator for the server, but also letting me compete. I'd like to thank Wakeman, running team ideas by him, but also doing some mocks for the grand final. Masto also threw some ideas at him. He also hates Bullaby, so fuck him. I'd like to thank the other Sandbox mods, doesn't necessarily Draft League, but the Sandbox mods, and all the coaches in Twin Leaf and whatever the other division is called, they're not important. I'll hope to see you all back next season. Hopefully we can get even more divisions going. And that's it, guys. That's my 4th, 2nd, 0 firsts. Go me. So yeah, I'm really excited to be part of Sandbox, and I hope to see you all again next season. Looking forward to what Scarlet and Violet brings, and also hopefully get a Little Cup championship under my belt. I'm in another server called DPEC. I have qualified for the Invitationals, so that's all on Showdown, so I probably won't be posting too much of that sort of stuff, but hopefully I can get a win there. That would be really cool. That's it, guys. That's me logging off. I will see you all next time. I've got one more grand final. Let's see, do I get 5 seconds, or do I get 4 seconds and a first? We'll find out soon. See you later, guys.